Hi again, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Inside Furman Athletics. I am Dan Scott. It is our monthly get-together with Athletics Director Jason Donnelly, and I think most people know this guy.
And Dan, I want to preface that because we were just joking around about it. The best part about doing these interviews is we get to spend a couple minutes together and just talk. But I said to Dan, who do you think we should have on the show this month? And he replied very quickly and said, definitely Bob Richey. And I said, we just had Bob on. And he goes, definitely Bob Richey. But Bob, congratulations. And a lot's obviously transpired since the last time we talked. But I just want to congratulate you, your staff, your family, your team on an unbelievable accomplishment. We just had a chance for the fans. We just had a chance to have a head coaches, assistant coaches, performance meeting, talking about all the great things that are happening in the department. But it was an opportunity for us also to share a number of things that happened on an institutional level. And Bob and I had this conversation for years. Like we would always talk about what's this going to look like when we get there. But the transformative nature of the success of the program, even beyond what the basketball program has done. So on behalf of Furman University and our alumni and our students, faculty, staff, just congratulations to you. But how are you feeling?
Well, it's one of those deals. You know, it's funny. We coined that phrase of joy and urgency as we were going through the year, and I've kind of gone back to that a lot, even in the off season, because the urgency behind recruiting and developing and getting into April, and you know, there's all kind of different things going on, and but also, you know, I think it's important to continue, like all the coaches that have done it before. Every single one of them to a man has said, hey, make sure you enjoy this. Yeah. And I think a lot of it because it's hard. And, you know, as drivers and vision people, like it's always, hey, let's go do it again. If you stand back and like just ask yourself at our level, how many teams have gone to the tournament and won a game at this level, it's a rarity, you know, and it's something that we're going to always have ambition to do and to do more. And obviously, we've seen great examples of Loyola and FAU and different people that have even pushed on to the Final Four. But we definitely want to continue to find joy in those moments because it was really special. And, you know, I think a lot of people have asked me over the course of the time, the question I've probably gotten the most is, you know, who's the coolest person that you've heard from? And my honest answer to that has really been, it's not so much the famous people or, you know, people that you would say you hear from only in magical moments. The biggest joy for me has been able to see this be a realization to people at Furman that saw this vision from the beginning. And it hadn't been the big people outside of it. It's been the day one people inside of it. And, you know, we've sat up here for years and looked atop Paris Mountain and talked about where we want to go. And we did it, you know, and it's not a finish, it's not a plateau deal, but you know, we sat around here as dreamers, and you know, and look, we had our fair share of adversity, we had our fair share of challenges along the way, and even got really close and almost touched it and had it pulled from us, and you know, but to see the Raymond Newsoms who have just invested years and just all kind of time and care in our program. To see Paul Foster and Matt Streckengast and, you know, Dr. John Block, and I'm missing some people, but there's people that the White Smith that have been day one, you know, and to be able to look at President Davis, to you as the athletic director, and to say, hey, we did it, you know, that's probably been way more rewarding for me than the people that you'd say, oh, the famous people that you heard from.
Well, it reminds me of an interview I heard with Ringo Starr a few years ago. We'll have to explain to Bob maybe who the Beatles are. But somebody asked him, you know, who's the most famous person you've ever met? And without blinking, he said, George.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the four of us were in the trenches together, John, Paul, George, and Ringo.
Yeah.
Nobody was more famous than us, and yet, you know, those are the people that you live and die and blood, sweat, and tears with, and you have all of the successes with. That's who you appreciate the most, and that speaks to what you're saying.
Well, it's just one of those. It's hard. I mean, it's you know, I was laughing in our head coaches meeting internally a little bit. Jason asked the room. He said, "How many of y'all have, you know, had any pressure after a loss, you know, in a game?" Which obviously that's not something he does. He's always encouraging, "Hey, keep going." But I'll tell you, one of the low points of this year, I'll never forget it. When we lost to Old Dominion, and I walked by him out of the locker room, and I just looked at him and said, "I'm sorry." You know, like. I mean, it was like we lost to Penn State in a tough one, and we basically no-showed in the Old Dominion game. And I just remember that moment, and it was just like, I just looked at him, I just said, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
And,
but
it's just those moments of Citadel and Western, but they teach you and they build you and you grow from it.
And that's the beauty of the perspective, because I will take that moment you had, and then I'll take you a week or two later when you and I met after the tournament, and you had regrouped during the Saturday, and then you had a great performance, beat South Carolina on Sunday. And you came back, and it was great for me to see this perspective from you, where you're like, I can't wait to do another one of those tournaments. Mm-hmm. And I said, why? And I knew where you were going with this, because I knew this was the development of your program, but you were able to say, that experience for our players, that experience for our staff, that experience for our families and our fans was exactly what we needed. And you had gotten past the point of worrying about the result, and you got to the point of worrying about the process. Like, what did we learn from that experience, and what did we get out of the competing at that level? And I was so excited about that, to see you raise your sights for where you see this program. And, I've cited that early on as a part of our relationship. One of the first things that I asked you to do when I got here, I said, hey, Bob, would you be open to playing games down at the Well? And let's challenge our program. Let's challenge Greenville and get outside of Timmons and get outside of our brand and do it. And you thought about it, and you're like, I'm in. And then you quickly said afterwards, like, as long as we don't have attendance like we did against Bob Jones. and I said, don't worry about that. I said, that's on us. And to have the moments, like signature moments to me, I mean, obviously this month was full of them. Like to see grown men crying in the stands in Asheville, that's love and support. I mean, tears of joy coming down their faces. And then to replicate that experience, there's a great picture of Jalen.
Yep.
And he's facing the crowd. He's just fired up, and he's just and everyone's faces, and all the people that love this program, their passion and the joy, the urgency that came through it. But those moments, there's been other moments. I mean, like, I think about playing at the Well and Mike shot and the students storming the court, and I think about the road wins. Like, there was moments this year, like even when you went up to ETSU, you're like, we've never won here, and I'm thinking to myself, man, that's crazy when you think about it. But that during your tenure, that you haven't won there to get that breakthrough. And we're at a point now, what's really cool is like you're setting the bar for what this is. And I'm very thankful, and I'm actually, like, the things that I've heard from people that I've been able to share when people have reached out, they're like, oh, it's great, Bob's coming back. And I said, the best part about Bob coming back for me through this lens is to be able to see you and your team enjoy this. Go to the governor, you go to the state capitol, go into the mayor next week, being together as a team. Because what happens a lot for someone in your position is you win the conference, now you've won a tournament game, you're on cloud 9, and then a lot of guys, they're automatically moving on to another job. They don't get the joy. Like think about, like Lamont last year at South Carolina, like they win at Chat, and the next thing you know, he's out the door, and he never got to enjoy any of that run with his team.
Well, that's something that's been, it's been neat just to see our players experience that. And, I told a reporter, there's Beth with Fox did an incredible job with our coverage, and as did all the stations. But she's one that I met during this whole process, and she asked me a couple of questions. She always get me stirred up. But before we went to Asheville, she asked me, she's like, what would this mean? And, one of the driving forces all year was for me personally, was to see Mike and Jalen, like, be able to look back and say, hey, you know what, we made the right decision. And, man, what a neat deal for those guys. I mean, just the legacy that they're always going to have here. And for them to say, look, we were a part of that. Mm-hmm. And now, to have the Portsmouth opportunities, which I've been here 12 years, we haven't had a single player. And we've had some really good players. Mm-hmm. We've had the Matt Raffertys and the Jordan Lyons. And, you can go down the line. We haven't had somebody get into Portsmouth, and this year we had 2, right? We got 2 guys that, the agents that they went with, the investment that they're putting into them on the pre-draft front. You look at right now, I mean, Jalen has solidified himself as a round 2 projection. Yeah. Now, will that hold? There's a lot to be determined, but how neat would that be to potentially on June 22nd to see Furman come across the board? Yeah. Right? Like, we haven't had that in decade. I mean, long time.
Last guy, Clyde Mays,
I believe. Yeah. And so it's one of those deals where we obviously want to keep pushing forward. And I can assure you, we had our staff meeting 9:30. We had our staff meeting this morning at 8. We've been able to rest a little bit, but at the same time, we want to continue to enjoy it, but we want to continue to push forward as well.
I know you're one who talks to your mentors about things, and in a lot of different situations over the years. When you talked to people who you trust about what the NCAA tournament experience was going to be like and how to approach things, how is what they told you compared to what you experienced?
Well, I mean, there's almost two sides to that coin, to be honest with you, Dan.
Yeah.
You know, there is the side of the coin that I think is real, that we are chasing moments. And it's very important for our, as coaches, our mental health and sanity, and, you know, to understand that there's no destinations in what we do. And you gotta appreciate the moment, and you gotta know that, hey, next year that moment's over. You know, that night cutting the net is great and the confetti is great, but like you go to bed and there's a next day, right? Mm-hmm. And you know, Jay Wright helped me with this a couple years ago. You know, Jason connected me with him, and we were talking about just future. And he said, you know, and I've never forgotten this. He said, you know, I always got kind of in the hamster wheel of my business, of my profession, because it was always like, what would it feel like to do that, right? Like, what would it feel like to do that? And then he would say, hey, what would it feel like first, second round? What would it feel like Final Four? And it's funny. He told me, he said, you know what? Once I finally did it all, you know what it felt like? It felt like that I knew what it felt like. You know, like it wasn't like this. It's not going to be something that completely changes my whole joy and happiness. Mm-hmm. And especially somebody that, you know, as a believer and just what I value as an individual, I know that there's more to all this. But then at the same time, I'll tell you this, when you flip that coin over, I've done this 17 years. There's nothing that's ever felt as good as that. You know, and so yeah. Like, it's like, right, like when you're comparing.
But that's enjoying the moment.
When you're comparing like what you can accomplish professionally. Mm-hmm. But I think the disease of this career and this business is to think that that's going to lead to life completion. And,
right.
And it never does, right? And so like that feeling walking off the court at Virginia, yeah, you can't bottle that. You can't price tag that. You can't. There's nothing that you can compare that to. But I tell you this, it's you know, it's just surreal. Like you when you pull back, I mean, like you think of the fine margin in this business. Like we had to go to Sanford, and that was a huge day for this program. Like mm-hmm. that's kind of been in the mm-hmm. back burner a little bit. Yeah, that was a nationally televised game. You're going 1 versus 2 at the time, mm-hmm. right? Sanford had already published that they were SoCon champs, you know, and so not that we keep any receipts around here, but it's one of those deals where
power of recall.
We're walking into a sold out crowd, mm-hmm. right? And to be honest with you, from like a sporting perspective, it was teed up for them.
Yeah,
you know, like the thing was on a tee for them. They would have gone in as the 1 seed. They would have claimed basically like sole champs, right? And does any of this happen? I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe we go in as a 2 seed and we still win the tournament. But we're being foolish to think that the momentum off of that win, to get a convincing 14-point win down there, that didn't help prepare mentally for what we were going to have to endure in the tournament. And then the tournament had some, you know, like, you know, our probably most complete game was the championship. You know, our probably most complete half was that first half Western. Mm-hmm. But, like, we listen, that thing got slippery.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it got a little dicey. And, you know, but that was good. Like, we had to battle through some adversity first half Mercer. Like, and then you go and cut the net down, right? And then you go to Orlando. And then, you know, you're there and you're trying to figure out, like, how are we going to prepare for this? Most people, to answer your question, Dan, I heard 2 general schools of thought. I heard, hey, look, it's really hard to win that first game as a mid-major. Like, just put all your eggs in one basket. See if you can win that first one. The high majors are going to go about it this way, like 3-4 team tournaments, mm-hmm. right? So they're going to scout all 3 because their probability of winning is going to be intensified and increased. But for us, you know, I wanted to make sure we knew the challenge that we had in our hands on Virginia, and I really wanted all hands on deck. And so I went with that route. I went with, hey, look, whole staff, everybody in the program, like, let's go beat Virginia. And then we'll have Friday, and then to prepare for the next opponent, whether it be Charleston or San Diego State, and then we'll go play on Saturday. In hindsight, learning and going through it, what I will do next time is a little bit of a hybrid. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is I still would want to make sure most of our focus is on that first opponent. I think what I didn't understand was the media and the time commitment, and also the emotional win that we had. Mm-hmm. Friday, a 24-hour Friday, it felt about like a 4-hour Friday.
Yeah.
And what I wish we'd have done a little bit better job, and listen, San Diego State played unreal. And we obviously, you know, we did not play great. A lot of that credit was to them. I wish we would have at least done we did do some work. It's not like we went in completely blind, but probably more so, hey, as soon as we finish that game, these two opponents, these are the 3 games that we've identified through a 31-game season that we need to lock in on. And instead, we were doing more of the dissecting from their conference tournament, which was good data, But I wish we'd had more time to really get underneath it a little bit more. But those are the things that you learn. And I'll tell you a funny story, though, that we've talked about as a staff a good bit that I think the viewers will like. A couple things. First of all, talk about what you learn through failure. So we're down in Charleston, and we're playing at Citadel. And clearly we're not playing our best all night. But we're kind of up 5, they were tied. Up 6, they were tied. We never really got down until the very end. And with about 6 minutes to go in the game, I looked back at our staff, and I said, I'm about to press. Well, that's not something that you guys that follow us, that's not something we do all the time. And the staff, jumps up, and they're like, don't, relax. They viewed it as a little bit like I was panicking. And so I went with consensus, and we didn't. And we lose, okay? So then all of a sudden Mercer sees the game plan, slow it down, shorten the game. And so we get into the week that we had to prepare for the conference tournament. And I said, guys, I'm not getting caught without a curveball again. Okay, I'm gonna take 2 periods, 2 days, and we're gonna work on our 1-2-2, and we're gonna work on our 1-3-1 zone. Yep. And I said, just in case, right? So we get in the Mercer game, we use the press, we win the tournament, and we don't work on the 1-3-1 at all leading up to Orlando, not a rep. Yep. Okay, and so we get in the Virginia game, and there's about 11 minutes to go, and we're down 12, and I look at the staff, and I said, hey, I'm about to go 1-3-1. And I get the same sort of response. No. And I walked up the court, and it was like, I got to make this decision. This is what I've got to do. I've got to decide, is this what I want to do? And as soon as I was like, you know what, we're going to do it. I just felt like we had to change the rhythm somehow. Yep. And all of a sudden, I think they had rethought the Citadel conversation, and they start yelling my name again. I look back, and they're like, go ahead and do it. And so, we go 1-3-1, and obviously it was a huge curveball that allowed us to at least get back in the game. We were able to get in striking distance and ended up taking the lead with it. But it's funny when you process those decisions. Those can have huge impacts.
Well, if you go back and look at the run, you're going all the way back. I mean, one of the things to keep in mind too is your team was one of the hottest teams in college basketball during the stretch. I mean, you take one of the losses out as you go about it. One of the losses about the Citadel. I mean, it's one of only 20 losses in a stretch. One of the things you were doing, and not taking anything away from Virginia to say that they weren't prepared, but you were consistently mixing things up after halftime, and you were throwing curveballs in the second half, which allowed the team to flourish. And I think part of that strategy, but also knowing your roster and saying the versatility and the aggressiveness of the team and playing to their strengths. You had those curveballs in your back pocket. And as you go back and you look at the run, I mean, there was things that you did come out of halves, and I loved it because it was the other team just had no time to prepare, no time to adjust, and that was the Virginia game. They did not have the ability to take the time and say, how do we fix this, until they could fix it.
Well, one of my regrets of the San Diego State game, and look, like I said, I knew this. It was a tough matchup for us just in terms of their size, not just their size, their girth. I mean, they were thick and wide. But they do an interesting thing, and I try not to get too technical on here, but, you see a lot, and as fans, you can see the game going to a lot of different spacing and 5 out. And there's a lot of actions where you've got this down screen with a handoff coming behind it. So they're trying to get a little friction point and then to get a handoff. And typically what you have on the other side of that with those other two people is they're spaced. Yep. What San Diego State does, they kind of blend modern basketball with a little bit of old school basketball. They run that down screen handoff, and they are ducking you in with a 5-man at the same time. Yep. So for us, typically on those handoffs, we're going to show, because we're going to try to keep the ball high on the floor. But what's unique is if you show and they get that thing to the roller, they've got this quick 2-on-1 that really they might score it, but if nothing else, they're going to throw it up on the board, and they're going to just try to go offense rebound the ball. Yep. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm watching FDU just dare. It's a late night. We already kind of put the plan together. And I'm watching FDU just dare Purdue shooters to shoot the ball. Yep. And they are shooting bowling balls. I mean, you can just see Purdue, and it's just they're just heavy. Yeah. and it's midnight, and I'd watched Arizona Princeton dared Arizona to shoot, just dared them, and it's like 12 o'clock, and I text the staff. I'm like, you know what, guys, we hadn't really done it all year. We should just go under all this and just sit in the paint. And if they make them, they make them. And the staff was like, I don't know if we can do that in one morning. But my personality, I was like, we can walk through this. We can figure this out. Yeah. And you know what? We probably made, if you talk to 100 coaches, they're going to say, hey, in March, do what you do. 95%, probably 99% are going to say, just do what you do. That's what got you there. Do it. Mm-hmm. In hindsight, we probably should have. We probably, with their size, we should have probably. But now, if they would have had a good shooting day, it would have still been the same result.
Right.
And what happened is we had that 16-12 lead, and we fouled that three-point shooter, and then they started really beating us up in transition off of some of our turnovers, and they got it to 10, and then they started making shots.
Yep.
Beginning of the game, if you look at their first half three-point, it wasn't good.
Yep.
But second half, they didn't have any game pressure on them, and they started making those shots. And that's probably one thing you look back, but you never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
And I'll take it and chalk it all up to experience. And I think that it's hard to know in the moment when you're going through that. And it's hard to, like, you as the coach have got to look at everything and say, okay, what about this? What about that? At the end of the day, you're also playing against a team that was physically and mentally prepared to do what they did. So the credit sometimes goes to them. I remember playing Kansas, and they run that same action every time, and basically they would drift the post and they'd throw a lob over the top. And two game, and we just couldn't defend it. We didn't have the size or physicality, but we learned. And then they wound up winning the national championship that year, and then the next year we came back and we did what we had to do. We were able to fight through those things and learn. And I think it's going to be some of the beauty of the growth of the program in terms of where you go with this, where your staff goes with this, where your players go with this. And I said it right before the mics went on too. I said, part of our fan base challenge is also to remember, same as we were saying this in the beginning of the year last, when Alex and Conley left, we had to adjust. We're going to lose two all-SoCon players, SoCon Player of the Year. We're going to lose Slauson and Bothwell, and we're going to have to adjust. So it's every year is such a great journey and such a great perspective of how you adjust. One question I have for you is, you had a front row seat to see the institutional change with basketball. What you've been able to see during your tenure, both as an assistant and now as the head coach. Talk about some of the things that you've seen from an institutional standpoint and the things you're happy with and where you'd like to see some of this go.
Well, I'll tell you some of the neatest messages I got, just to be honest with you, via email, and I printed off a couple. I got a few faculty emails that were awesome. Just really just, I don't know if they always feel the impact of what we do on a daily, but they were able to really connect with that experience. And, I think it was one of those situations where even seeing Mike get that leadership award a couple weeks ago, and the director of the Shucker Institute getting up there and saying, hey, in 29 years, I haven't seen something that galvanized this whole institution that much. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a neat thing about it is Greenville and the campus, it was all united around a common purpose of like, hey, we see this on a national stage. And, I've been here since 2011 and, 6 years an assistant, 6 years being head coach. And I think that, I love, ever since I was a kid, I love building. I was always, even as a kid, when my mom bought something, she would ask me to put it together. And, I love seeing things grow. And, man, I mean, Dan and I talk about this all the time. We got here around the same time.
Same year.
And the things that we've had to go through, right? And like just the marginal gains of just saying, hey, let's find a way to commit a little bit more to this, or let's find a way to increase this. I think when you look back now, it's like the accumulation effect of a lot of those small increases and changes, and the staff over time has grown. The resources that we've been able to put in the staff has grown, and now you give yourself a chance, right? Investment equals return. We see the return, right? And I think we all were able to feel that, probably self-admittedly as the coach, in a greater capacity than I even expected. Yeah. And I think some of that was because of the Virginia win and going through that. But I've just loved to see how it's united this university, and I think everybody that wanted to was able to benefit off of it.
Yeah. Well, I do want to share something we just shared in our head coaches meeting. Was we have this data now, and Bob's very data driven, very analytical, and he uses it at a high level with his team. Might be at the highest in the country amongst coaches, but. We have this data now that we've been discussing, administration, president, VPs, board of trustees, faculty, staff, and there's undeniable metrics. And I was joking in the head coaches meeting that I had a trustee reach out and said, we're going to get you a bumper sticker that said, told you so. Because we've been saying this. We've been saying this is the net return you're going to see at the start. And it's not the end. It's just the start of this whole thing. And one of the data points that we just shared in the meeting was that during the month of March, the Furman Athletics and basketball page had 3 million impressions, which I'm not Mr. Analytical. Like, I don't know exactly what the numbers meant. So Drew Ingraham, our senior associate, explaining it. And I said, Drew, and you pointed this out. I said, what would it typically be in a month? He said, maybe 10,000. So to go from 3 million impressions to based on 10,000, that's just one metric alone that tells such a story for your program. And it's not just the basketball is amazing. Like we're fans and we're invested and we're doing all the right things, but the institutional impact of what this means for Furman and what this means for Greenville is just phenomenal in so many different spaces. So congratulations to you, not just on the basketball success, but on the institutional impact, transformational nature of what this is just off the charts.
Well, like you said, I do have some people I lean on, and one person that I didn't know when I was an assistant that I used to always study was Rick Byrd, and he was a head coach at Belmont, and there were a couple of reasons why I studied him. One, he's an unbelievable basketball coach, but two, the way they built Belmont into what it was and the NCAA tournament success they were having, what used to be an NAIA school. What's really interesting, and anybody that ever goes to Nashville, I would encourage you, like, drive through their campus.
Yes.
There's cranes everywhere. And when I went to camp when I was a kid, one camp I went to was Lipscomb. And it's well documented. One of my mentors is a head coach at Lipscomb now, so this is nothing negative about Lipscomb. But when I was a kid, Lipscomb was the king, right? And Belmont was kind of right here underneath it. Mm-hmm. Well, now because of what they've been able to do, basketball success, when you go and you see that Belmont campus and you see, like, I mean, they just built this performing arts center in the last couple of years. It's just incredible, right? The academic buildings that are going up, the face of the institution. Yes, they have a brand new practice facility that's really, really nice. Mm-hmm. But it's not just like, oh, well, here's the basketball side of it. Like the whole campus, the enrollment, the energy around it, it's all changed. Yep. And, Rick is somebody that I've confided in just in terms of my personal journey. And, he'll tell you that's one of the biggest joys of him looking back on his career is just how there was this institutional change that really everybody was able to benefit from. And, that's been the neat thing. I mean, seeing Selection Sunday, that was an awesome moment, just seeing who was all in there, how the energy around it, just my wife and I walking around Houston, you see the bracket and it's got our name on it, and you're just, for years and years, my son leading the charge every year, he'd be like, Dad, I just want to be able to fill out a bracket with Furman on it. Yeah. And, we were able to kind of see that to fruition. And
how far did he take you?
He took us pretty far. But at the end of the day, I would say this too. One thing that I've heard, probably Coach Bird told me this was, as you look forward, right? Like, of course, we're going to want to win every tournament from here on out. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that's probably not going to happen. The key is it's almost like wood on a campfire, right? Like you want that fire to stay burning, right? And you don't have to just keep throwing wood every second. But as you got to keep that fire lit, right? Like you never want the fire to, because the energy that you got to take to rebuild that whole fire, that's a lot harder than just making sure, hey, look, we're just keeping wood on it, right? Mm-hmm. We're just making sure that we just keep this flame going. The flame is the momentum. The flame's the energy around it, right? How much can we continue to grow in Greenville? How many sellouts are we going to have, right? The facility that we're embarking on, and like the program, and just have an identity that, hey, that's a winner, right? Like that's a sustained winning program. And then guess what? The result of that process of keeping that flame going is what's going to get us enough tournament wins to say, hey, you know what? This is part of our identity. This is what we do.
Well, on that note, and I know, Dan, you got another question too, but let's throw you a softball question, because one of the things that you've done really well here is that you've done a really good job of articulating to our fan base, to our donors, to our community what you need to see. Like one of the things that you was an open challenge by you over the last year and two is like increasing the fan base. Like that was a stated goal that, in my mind, in my opinion, I think we've achieved that. Now there's always more to go, but you can see the growth, you can see the change that's been going on. But what do you need? What's next? Like, and this is something you and I are. We'll talk a lot about this spring, this summer. But what when you look to the future of Furman basketball in your vision, what do you need? What's next?
Are you going to lay the checkbook out? When he answers that question?
No, that's the challenge of it. But I will say, and it's a dangerous, loaded question, but this is what Bob was also referring to at the beginning of the conversation.
Right.
The support has never been higher. So the investment, when we talk about return, the return on your investment, the university's been investing, donors have been investing, our fans have been investing. Like, you begin to see the sacrifices people are making, time, money. There's one season ticket holder who's become a friend, and one of the funniest things I love, like, we're at I don't know if I've told you the story. We're at the send-off in Asheville, and this dude's all in, and he's there with his wife and his daughter. They don't miss a game. And we're doing the send-off, and the team goes through, and I'm standing next to him. He goes flying out the back door. And I turned to his wife, so where's he going? He goes, he's running to the arena. I said, why? He goes, he wants to sit right in the front row in the open seating. Like, there's a level of passion with our fan base that, it's time, talent, treasure. Like, people are devoted here. But, Dan, when you joke about, like, what's the checkbook, like, there's a certain point where, for me, I feel a strong sense of partnership with Bob. Like, Bob's not just making suggestions, like, hey, we need these things. He's also delivering with resources and results. So, what's the need? What's next? Like, where are we going?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and I want to make sure, I paint this picture well, that it doesn't sound overwhelming, or the last thing I'd want it to do is sound ungrateful, because look, the growth that we've had has been a partnership. It's been everybody involved, and even in recent discussions since the NCAA tournament of how does the program grow.
Yep.
And I loved telling a recruit this weekend, we were recruiting against another team in our league. And, it was, hey, look, it's program versus person, right? Like, this isn't about a person. This isn't about a player. This isn't about me. This isn't about Jalen Slauson. This isn't about Mike Bothwell, just like it's not about Matt Rafferty, right? Like, it's not about – this is about Furman University and how we can build a program that's sustainable. So when you look at it, and this is always the elevator pitch, Dabo Swinney's an unbelievable football coach. Where does resources lie in the ACC in terms of football? At the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Like, what we'd probably say top 5 in the country, correct? Nick Saban is an unbelievable football coach. His resources are the best in the entire country. And so this is a resource battle, right? It always will be, because the success that we all just enjoyed, 3 million, admissions, visibility. Well, guess what? Every mid and low major is fighting for that. And so what we have to do is we have to continue to look and see, where's this thing grown? And then where do we have to go? There's 3 big buckets, right? You've got facility bucket, right? Capital campaign projects, okay? We know we got to get Timmons right. Jason understands this as well as anybody, okay? We're just trying to get to the water line, right? Like, this is not like, we have to understand as a fan base, this is not a bonus. This is just getting us to the water line. Now, when you see the plans and you see the excellence that he functions with in the details, I told a recruit this weekend, all 3 of the recruits, I said, we will have, not the biggest, we will have the nicest arena in this league and one of the nicest at this level when this is done. Yep. Now, there's a price tag on that, right? But with that, and we all know this, we need practice space. Like, we just do. And there's a lot of different things. There's 2 programs that compete in there. It's becoming a competitive advantage, right? Like, you look at Loyola practice space, you look at Belmont practice space, you look at Charleston practice space. Like, I can keep going. And we have the space for it, right? And we need that. But that's going to take some time. And there's a couple different smaller things in that area. Recovery rooms are becoming very popular at this level, more so at the high major level. What you're doing nutrition and food-wise, not just the ability to get more food to them, but how you're getting that to them. There's a couple competitive spaces there. Okay, so that's that bucket. You also got the Excellence Fund, which for us is a mechanism that we use in fundraising to be able to operate and be able to tell recruits, look, this experience for you is going to be as good as any mid-major experience in the country, and like, this is how we're able to do that. And that's where we're not always asking the university for more, right? But we're partnered with the university of saying, hey, we're willing to help in this, but we want our players, we want Jalen Slauson and Mike Bothwell to say, you know what, I'm staying because they take care of us at a high level, right? And then the other bucket is going to be this NIL world, right? Like, that's just where this thing's going. And I can't have my hands in that, right? That's the collective outside of this and people that are supporters of the program that deal in that space. A couple of years ago, it's like, oh, man, that's a little icy. we have a way, and our collective has done an unbelievable job of doing this in a manner that is aligned with the values of our institution and our program. And, there's going to be, the collective, again, outside of our program, they're going to have a credit card set up that's going to come out in the next week or so, right? Like, that's going to be a new deal that everybody's like, hey, look, I don't know if I'm on board with that, right? I don't know if I like I don't know if I like giving this money to these student athletes. Well, here at Furman, you're going to know there's going to be a community service approach to it. There's going to be a give back to it. There's going to be a way that we're educating through this, through investing and also through tax education, that inside the Further the Man program, they're learning how to use these resources, right? Jalen Slauson doesn't have to go get set up when he gets his pro contract. He already is set up, right? So he's getting his per diem right now in his pre-draft. He's already putting that money where it needs to be. Well, that's part of Further the Man. And that's what Furman can offer, is we can give a unique experience that shows, like, hey, this is how we operate, but we can also adapt to where we don't die, because this thing's going to pass us. I mean, I had a school that we would all love to beat for a recruit offer a kid 60 to 80,000 this weekend. Now, we're not allowed to do that, and I don't negotiate. And I tell every single recruit I'm not doing that. Schools are doing that, and it's happening in our space. It's happening in our league.
And I just want to share for the public, everything that Bob's sharing are the contemporary topics in college basketball. And I think it's important for the public to understand, because this is part of our job, is to educate our administration, our leadership, our community, that this is what college sports is now. And if people don't want to acknowledge that or understand it, we're all going to get left behind. When Bob talks about a watermark around facilities, we are just trying to get to the level of where we're supposed to be, not where we're going. And that's going to be the nicest possible arena that we can have at the size and scale of where we are for now. When we talk about resource development, we had someone on Monday. We were doing this fundraising push, and we had someone get back to us and say something. Well, y'all got enough. You got everything you need, and we kind of called back on that and said, no, we don't. There's a thought process. Sometimes people think, well, no, they got everything they need, and we said no, and a group of people supported that, and it all worked out. And the person realizing that no, you may think that we have everything you need, but we need to do more. The level of investment needs to continue to increase. And the collective is a whole different conversation. It's a whole different conversation about where this is all headed. So every competitive athletic department in the country at the Division I level is going through this. Some are choosing to not engage, and they're going to fall way behind. Some are going way above and beyond. They may lose their soul. We're trying to keep our soul in this process and figure it out. So I love the passion that you're sharing all this, and it's alignment institutionally where we're going.
Well, we're not, and I'll touch on this because I've heard a lot of people ask about this, but two things I'll add to this. How good was St. Peter's this year?
They weren't.
Okay, so they went a game further than we did, right? Maybe two. I can't remember exactly.
Sweet 16.
They went to the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Okay, their coach left, right? They weren't any good this year because they didn't have the infrastructure and the resources and the vision to continue to support it. So now, yeah, it was a flash in the pan. And the people that are, I don't want to use the word against, but the people that can be a little bit hesitant about what we're doing, that's usually their argument. Okay, but let me flip it. What was Davidson like when they were rolling in this league? It was sustained, right? It was an academic situation. It was in alignment with what they were trying to do as a university. Belmont, right? It was sustained. Butler, Gonzaga, right? Like all there's a difference between the flash in the pan model and the sustained model. And what you're going to see is there's a focus on, we can't get outside of who we are. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But we've got to build around what we are and what we're doing. Okay, so for instance, recruiting. The number one question I'm getting right now is, man, this has to be helping you guys find a better player. Hey, we've had some really good players here. Okay, like everybody in the country would have taken Jalen Slauson this year. Everybody in the country would have taken Mike Bothwell. Yes, we have been able to get in some more conversations. But I'm going to tell you this. It still has to fit who we are, right? It still has to fit the culture of, this is an earn everything culture, right? And like, you start dealing in this stuff and you start to think, well, we can go get something that is better, quote unquote better. I'm talking to my son about this, trying to teach him a few things. Look at the Dallas Mavericks right now, right? They thought adding Kyrie was, oh man, this thing's turned into a disaster, right? We had a situation in our league this year where there was a talent stack, and you're like, hey, but it doesn't always work like that, right? And so like this weekend, we've got a scholarship. What do we do with it? everybody's like portal, portal, portal. I don't have anything against the portal, okay? But there's this element in business that sometimes in sport we miss. Competitive advantages are only competitive advantages if you're the one that has it and the competitors don't. That's what a competitive advantage is. If everybody has access to it, it's no longer a competitive advantage. So right now in the spring, where is the focus of 95% of staffs? Portal. Well, high school players didn't just quit playing.
Yeah.
Okay, like they didn't just stop. So our staff is coming up with all these, and we just took a player out of the portal. You know, we can't talk about it, but we got a commitment for somebody. I'm not against it. He's a fit as a fit could be. I'm pumped about it. But with this other one, it's like, hey, like give me 10 high school kids that nobody's recruiting right now that could be a mid-major plus kid that we might be able to just get them and nobody's even talking to them. Now we've got to be able to look at it and evaluate it because they're not going to have a lot of attention because everybody's in this portal. Well, what does that do? That oversaturates the portal to what you can actually get is probably of less value than what you could if it was a little bit more balanced. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of different things where you have to stay inside identity, but man, can we increase the pond a little bit to where maybe inside identity we have access to get a player that we maybe couldn't have got it without this success?
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in also the fundraising pitch that everyone's hearing. If you listen to this, is invest. You know, and this is the thing is that we're at a point in time where anyone on our staff, our basketball staff, our advancement staff, myself, if you want to have a conversation about what this is you just understand this, and then there's also the investment to look at it from an institutional standpoint, like how are we growing, where are we going? We spent some time talking about the key performance indicators that you look at on a college campus when you talk about the impact on admissions, you talk about the impact on academics, talk about the impact on advancement, talk about the impact on exposure and engagement. And the metrics right now are through the roof. You know, Furman's have an all-time high in applicants, which is a great success. The academic mission, we talk about even within our department, we've had every team's above a 3.0. You know, you talk about fundraising's through the roof. You talk about exposures through the roof, engagements through the roof. And part of the challenge also is it's not just the success of the basketball program, but the success of the basketball program, how that impacts the greater cause for the institution to be more solid and secure so that we can continue to invest and grow that way. I can't wait. I mean, I'm excited and looking forward to see how this class enrolls in this class, but not just that class, but also the sustainable nature of this as we grow together and we begin to look at the institutional impact. And part of what I love working with Bob, it came out in one of our first conversations when we were getting to know each other. He totally embraces the academic and admission challenge of Furman. And that's part of why you've been so successful is that you want it. And you know, some people would say, "Oh, it's so hard. You can't get kids into school, or you got to get them. You got to take all their classes. They got to do all their CLPs. I mean, there's so many things you got to do at Furman that you don't have to do somewhere else. Whereas you look at this as such a value add, and I think that's why we're really good, and I think that's why you've been so successful, and that's what's so exciting. It's not just what you're doing with the program, but it's where we're going. And the key word, sustainable. You know, and we spent a lot of time talking about St. Peter's last year, and I know the St. Peter's guys. I know what they did, and know how they built it. But they had basketball where they wanted it to be. They just didn't have the rest of the institution to support it. They similar plan, but without all the ability to have an institution behind it and figure all that stuff out. But
you're so good. You're so good at putting all these things together. Can I get you to lobby for a broadcaster's NIL?
Well, I think Dan, you know, you think about it. There's examples on both sides, right?
Right.
We've got St. Peter's. We got Florida Gulf Coast. You know, we've got a lot, but then we've also got sustainable examples,
Yep.
right? Like. And it's been one of my things that everybody's probably heard me say is if we said this vision 6 years ago, they would have checked us in somewhere. You know, they would have tried to make sure I was okay, right? Like, so if we're 6 years ago and showing pictures that he's talking about a slaw, like one of the proudest moments of that tournament was like Purple wasn't at a deficit in Orlando. Mm-mm. Okay, like that's legit. Like they had Tennessee and Duke and all these teams there, but when I looked up and I saw our quadrant, it was full.
Oh, yeah.
Like there wasn't like, oh, well, you know, that's Furman. We don't have as many people. Like we showed out in Orlando. And I think one of the things that we all have to, we saw the Student Center. We saw Yeehaw Brewery. Let's not lose the momentum to unite this. Mm-hmm. You know, like, and I'm not saying this in a fashion to be argumentative. I'm saying this in a fashion to unite. Okay. Like I've been here 12 years. We haven't had an orientation event on our athletics side of campus. Okay, like why not unite it all? Why not this versus this, right? Like let's show new students this is who we are.
Good news for you is I've been asking for, this is my year 4 coming on, and we're getting it.
There you go.
So I'm going to need in a good way, and they actually said this before the run, and this is Furman really trying to figure out how to utilize these resources, but we got it, and to have that feature point, to have students from day one when they walk on this campus feel included. And again, another reason why I love Bob is he's saying continue to promote. I'm thinking about all the things we can do this summer, with incoming students as they're coming in with their current base, and it just is exciting to see everybody get together. But Dan, in the interest of time, we also have to respect Bob's time, and he's been a great guest. But let's give one last question, and Bob, thank you for the time. This has been a lot of fun, and Bob also, guys, we also need to get Coach Richey some rest. So he and his staff have been grinding. They were here all Easter weekend recruiting. He also deserves some downtime with his family, and his team deserves some downtime, which hopefully is coming in May. But Dan, one last question. What do you got to finish it out?
Well, it's something I think that people have gotten a little snippets of an idea that maybe something was going on all season long. And someone actually asked a question about this on the Furman discussion board. They said they noticed every time you were in a huddle, there were boom mics that were going down in. And the question was, I wonder if there was some kind of documentary that was being filmed on the team this season. And I think now we can reveal the answer, right?
Well, it's it was a pain. There were multiple games where I would forget to put the mic in, and I'd have to take my shirt off, and every time I was walking into a team meeting, 30 seconds before it's supposed to start, I'd forget, and I'd have to wire this thing up real quick. But I'll tell you this, I mean, it was a vision by Richmond Weaver in the community, and he came to me with the idea in the fall, and he said, I just feel like this is going to be the year. Mm-hmm. And I think with how it happened in March, seeing how everything has come together, he actually brought it to me in the spring, and late spring, to a point where he was able to capture our first team meeting in June. And, they weren't at everything, but they were at most of it.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those deals where, if we don't get out of that semifinal game versus Western Carolina, like, it probably doesn't mean anything to have it. But now all of a sudden what we did, now the 43-year drought, 31 years, 1 seed, 40 years, 43 years not going to the tournament, 49 or whatever it is of winning a tournament game, we have it all documented. And so it's going to take a little while to process it. I think they're going to do it in episodes. And, there's a trailer that is a few people have probably gotten access to it that, they're showing like a little bit of appetizer clip, and it's pretty good. It's, we talk about all the highs, but there were some hard parts this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, there were some hard moments, and man, there were some great moments. But,
well, I told Richmond in Asheville. I told him at the watch party. I said, if you're looking at it strictly just as a filmmaker, and we all know how we wanted it to end. I said, but if you're looking at it strictly just as a filmmaker, whether you win that final game in Asheville, whether you lose that final game in Asheville, it's still going to be a riveting film. It's just not as riveting with the outcome that we wanted, and obviously that's what we got.
Yeah, and I think that it's it all comes down to how you put that stuff together. And I know they've got a team, and obviously that's private, how they're doing all that. But it's going to be neat to see, just how they put it all together. And we have a former student, Carter Brady, that actually put together a compilation of the season, and we used it in recruiting this week. It's an unbelievable 10-minute video, but it's once they capture it all, it's going to be nice to see, and I'm sure they'll get information out in terms of when it's done, and for people to have accessibility to it. But it was pretty bold idea on their part, and it's probably going to be something that is pretty neat when all is said and done.
So was it worth all the aggravation?
Oh man, I mean, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was just when you would forget, or I remember sometimes after a game, I'd still have the microphone on, and But look, they got a lot of great moments.
Well, one of the funniest parts to me was it might have been the last regular season game at Timmons. I'm waiting in the back hall for you to come in so we can do the pregame interview, and I mean, you want to talk about thoroughness. Bob walks in. There's a camera following Bob. guy with a boom mic, just in case Bob says something under his breath, I guess. But then there's a camera following the camera that's following Bob. So they're documenting the documenting of. I mean, I can't wait to see this thing.
And Dan, this thing, to Richmond's credit, talk about a leap of faith, and also your confidence of allowing him to do this. that's. Like, I love The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, and that all came about because they had the confidence to allow a film crew to film them, and then that documentary comes out 20 years later. I mean, the interesting thing about this, you talk about taking, from the pain, going all the way back to the shot that Chattanooga hit, to all the way through this journey. It's just an unbelievable story, and talk about right time, right place, right access, and imagine the opportunities for Furman. This is the stuff Richmond and I were talking about when we were down in Orlando, and this could go anywhere. I mean, this could really lift Furman institution, Furman basketball, Bob, your program, your values. And, one of the best moments for me of just enjoying this tournament was going back and listening to you on the podium and the interviews they had with you and the interviews they had with the players on the team. And if nothing else, just the way that you guys handled that moment, that space and what you talked about, your values, your faith, your family, your vision for the team. There was a great quote, and Elizabeth Davis was standing next to me when you said it, and they asked you a question, about Mike and Slaw, and you turned it into an infomercial for Furman, and they said, everyone's going to ask about why they didn't leave. Let's talk about why they stayed. And then I turned to Elizabeth and said, that's your soundbite for the century, to talk about the impact and the story of continuity and keeping this group together and fighting through adversity and all the different things you guys do. And Bob, we're really excited to run it back, to go do it again.
Well, I'll tell you this. She listened to you because she met with a recruit this weekend, and that was her message.
Good.
And, it's been neat to see her get attached to it.
Yes.
And she's a friend, and she's our leader. And, I'll never forget April 7th, 2017, when I got the job. That previous Monday, I guess, would have been April 2nd, and the last part of my interview was with her. And she said, look, this is Mike's decision, but you're who I want. And she said, I want you to continue to lead this program forward. And to see her in Asheville, to see her in Orlando, to see her on the plane with us, to see her excitement at Selection Sunday, and, really, really being a partner in this. It's been, all of that, right? When you feel like, it's a force multiplier, right? Like when you have that top-down alignment, and you got board, president, AD, coach, program, like it's a force multiplier. And I do believe, y'all have heard me say this before, I don't like limiting beliefs. I think the most crippling thing in society and sport and organization is limiting beliefs. And I think we all have them, right? Like, oh, well, this is a limit, right? Like, and we don't always expound on them. We don't always verbalize them. We just subconsciously accept them. And to me, look, I told a recruit this weekend, he looked right at me and he said, Coach, why can't we go to the Final Four here? Mm-hmm. Like, hey, you know what? To say we can't is a limiting belief. I'm not saying we can go every year, but like we're not going to go to the round of 32 every year. You know what I mean? But what is the limiting belief that maybe you have as a fan, as a coach, as a player? Like, we've got to eliminate those.
Speaking of limiting beliefs, do you remember the first time I came to the golf outing? I gave a speech. So we're at the golf outing, the Furman basketball golf outing that Gary Clark used to run.
That's
and
right.
I get up there, and it's kind of the first time the community's meeting me, and I said, hey, I believe in this program. I believe in Bob. I think we can do anything. I think we can go to the tournament. I think, hell, we can be in the Final Four. And I came down and sat next to you at dinner. You're like, how about we get to the tournament first? and I was just being me, saying, hey, I don't have a limiting belief.
Thanks for the pressure, boss.
But my whole time that I've been with you, I've always known this is what it's going to be. Like, this is what this program has been working towards. This is the way that you carry yourselves. This is the way the team is built. This is what you've been working towards. Like, there's no surprises here. This is a purposeful plan of what it is, and then it is with God's grace. Like no these things don't happen just because you put a plan. You could have the greatest plan in the world. You've got to have some blessings and some belief along the way, and things got to go the right way for you time to time. Just like they sometimes go against you.
That's
you know.
Right.
And how do you handle that Chattanooga shot? And how do you handle the adversity that life gives you? And how do you work with everyone else around you? But this has been a great blessing for all of us to enjoy and be a part of. And Dan, we got to get Bob out of here because this has been great, but he's got other work to do.
Yeah, now you just have to go figure out how to do it again.
Do it again.
No pressure, right?
Do it again.
Thanks for your time, Bob.
Thank you, Dan.
While Bob is exiting, I'll let you know what is coming up on and off campus from the athletic department this week. You see that starting tomorrow, men's golf is at the Mason Rudolph Championship in Franklin, Tennessee. You got tennis here on Thursday. You've got tennis at Wofford on Friday, women's tennis, women's lacrosse on Saturday, and then what is not shown there is Sunday. You have the women's golf team beginning play in the Southern Conference tournament. So you got a lot going on athletically, and just want to keep you up to date on what's going on from a calendar standpoint there.
And Dan, that was great and great segue. And just, first want to say how grateful I am for Bob's leadership and personality and success and accomplishments, and just his commitment to return to Furman is meaningful, and we can certainly talk about that in so many different ways. But I do want to segue, talk a little bit about the department. First, I want to thank everyone that's been a part of this journey. We've had such a great run here. The work, the things that have gone on behind the scenes. This is part of what we discussed at our head coaches meeting. The month of March was unbelievable, and it was a total team effort on the part of the athletic department, on the part of the university, all the different things that came together. And I want to thank those of you that joined us. Everything from the Southern Conference tournament to the NCAA tournament to the women's basketball regionals to we had professional soccer taking place here at Furman. And there's other things like men's soccer just went on a great international trip. Anna Morgan just played Augusta, representing Furman as women amateur. Will Moreland is leading the nation in birdies for men's golf. Just incredible accomplishments. Riley Ludlam from softball was the player of the month, and she just hits a home run every time she makes contact. Just every great thing that's taken place. Callum Allison, Doug Allison's son, was the President's Award winner for the whole university for leadership. Bob referenced that when we talked about Mike Bothwell and Madison Dillon for women's tennis. Just so many great things that are taking place. And I know sometimes people feel like this part of it with me is an infomercial. Well, it's great. I mean, everything's going really, really well, and there's so much great success. Hats off to cheerleading. Cheerleading had spent some time, practicing all year for their first competition over 20 years and finished 14th in the nation. So just a lot of high points. A couple of things before we get into questions I just want to share. In addition to what you shared is we do have men's and women's senior days this week. So if anyone can come on out, we look forward to seeing you at tennis on Wednesday and Thursday. And this weekend we do have the campaign launch, and this is a big focus for us. And you can show up at any time. You can pre-register to be a part of it. There's going to be all kinds of different sessions, including a Paladin pitch on Thursday, and one of our men's soccer players is in that. Friday is Furman Engage. These are open programs for anyone to participate. We'll all be in Timmons Arena from 3:30 to 5:30 on Friday afternoon. On Saturday, we have multiple sessions. You can check the schedule. Dan, thank you for moderating some of those as well. But one of those things will be a Timmons Arena presentation at 3:30 on Saturday, which is our first chance to kind of show the project at large, talk about what we're doing. That'll take place on Saturday. There's a Purple Party that everyone's welcome to be a part of, which is a donor celebration to really kick off the launch and all the different things that are taking place. So just a lot of great stuff. I do want to bring everyone's attention also to Dins Day. It's coming up in just 2 weeks, I think 2 weeks from today on April 25th. And this is a great chance, and this is something we talk about with our coaches, for you to find the opportunity to support Furman. And it's not how much you give, it's just that you give. This is a participation challenge. All of our teams will be competing. We want to show out and be the best that we can when it comes to Furman Athletics. So you can start giving as early as today, and everything's live and ready to go. But Tuesday, April 25th is a huge day for our department in terms of what we do and where we're competing. And I hope that you'll support us on that day, because these teams are worthy. And certainly our biggest cause will always be the Paladin Scholarship Fund that supports the scholarships that support our athletes. And that's such a priority for us in terms of being competitive and remaining competitive on a national level in terms of what we do. But any chance you get a chance to come on out, a lot going on. Furman Athletics in April. I'm looking forward to getting out there with men's golf and women's golf, planning on attending the SoCon championships for both those teams. So if you're at those locations, I look forward to seeing you there too as well. But Dan, thank you for everything you've been doing to continue to promote Furman Athletics. It's certainly been a fun month.
All right, it's been an incredible month. And it's hard to believe that we're coming up on a month since the win over Virginia. I mean, you just wake up and time just continues to march on.
Yeah.
And excuse me, you want to bask in those moments and you want to take advantage of them. But as we're sitting here talking about, you have especially all of these things that are happening now with the Clearly Furman event this weekend. You enjoy the past, but you have to keep looking to the future.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I want our public to know is that, as a part of our plan and as a part of how we organize things, we have a larger, comprehensive master plan, strategic plan, continued growth. I think talking to Bob, you can see how the progression of different things that come together. It's a comprehensive effort, and we are a small institution with a huge reach and a huge opportunity. And we love and support all the teams that we have under our umbrella, and we want them all to be champions. We want them to all be successful in the classroom. We want the affinity with each of those different groups, and we feel like we're positioned to do that. Things will ebb and flow at different points. Like right now, you look at football and basketball at the high that they're in. Both teams are competing at a high level, and the cross countries are winning. The men's and women's are winning 10 straight championships, and that continues to rise. And other sports, both individually and collectively, are having success. But policies dictate things. When you see that teams may be down at a certain point, there may be some underlying reasons when it comes to policies that you've got to work through. Those policies sometimes take years to take an impact. The transfer portal has certainly had an impact and will continue to have an impact on smaller schools like us, unless you can have dynamic coaches that can really share that plan and retain. One of the biggest things that Bob did in that process was retain that team, and that's something that sometimes goes understated with what they were able to do is to stick together. Which was a big part of our message today with our coaches in terms of what we're working through and what we're growing towards. I do think this campaign is coming at a really good time for Furman in terms of all the different positives that we feel around the athletic department and where we're trying to grow. And it is a call to action. A campaign is an opportunity to really have conversation, is have an opportunity to understand, and really an opportunity to invest and grow. And we do need to grow. We need to continue to push the boundaries of what's possible and continue to work towards sustainable success, which we're getting there. So a lot of positives, Dan, but yeah, we're certainly looking ahead during this period of time, and I'm happy to, again, get any and every question. I know we haven't had a chance to debrief on these things, but feel free to ask away. Anything is open game, and we'll go through it. Anything.
Well, okay. You asked for it because the very first question that was submitted, and I told you if you want to talk about it, fine, that's up to you. Question number one, any truth to the rumor that baseball's coming back?
Yeah, it's a good question. And, I know that this is, when we talk about all the positives, there's pain. There's pain in this and with baseball. And the answer, the true answer to the question is not yet. There's no truth to the rumor at this point. There's always been conversations since the beginning when it relates to baseball and understanding the difficult nature of what that was at that time. Look at where we were in COVID and what we were asked to do as a department. And some of the surges forward, quite honestly, guys, I mean, we went through it. We were not able to operate at that level, and we had to take the hit in order to move forward in other areas, and baseball certainly wasn't ever supposed to be a part of that equation in terms of what we had to do. But the truth to the answer is not yet. There's conversations. There's things that we'll always discuss. There's strategy to all those different things. I will say the realization of other goals will allow us to look forward to grow our athletic department more than we are right now. And what I mean by that is that we've got to look at the model that we have. We've got to go out and fund Timmons. We've got to go out and attack some key strategic priorities. We've got to continue to develop a strategic relationship on campus when it comes to admissions, when it comes to finance, when it comes to all these different areas. But the baseball field is still there, and the stadium's still there, and baseball has been a part of our past and hopefully will be a part of our future. But the answer to that question is not yet. So, as we get into that, I believe in honesty and transparency, and we will be honest and transparent about when we get there and what that is. But the answer to that question is not yet.
All right, next question. With the basketball success, are there any suitors for possibly switching conferences?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. The answer is, again, not yet. And part of that is we are fully committed to the Southern Conference in terms of where we are and what we're doing right now. We've got a great partnership with the teams that we're connected to in terms of what we're doing. The presidents have all agreed to an agreement to double the exit fee when it comes to the conference affiliation with respect to keeping everyone together, which I think is a key thing that took place in that process, because each of us, Furman included, we're getting approached by other conferences to leave. There was some serious offers on the table, and there was a point where the conference was certainly vulnerable to those different things, and everyone kind of came together to say, we're going to support this for a couple different reasons. Regionality, affordability, the success factors that come with that, similar mindset. But during a period of time when there was great uncertainty, we all doubled down to agree to stick together. We don't have any immediate plans to make any moves, but we have to be mindful of the landscape that's around us. There are a lot of dominoes that have still yet to fall, that will fall, in the next several years. And it's going to be interesting to see what the Power 5 conferences do and how that all comes together. The majority of these conversations right now are centered around the future of the ACC, centered around the future of the Pac-12, the Big 12, what they do and where they go, and then you will see a domino effect that comes from that. So the ability to be responsive and ready to make changes and do different things is a part of all of our dialogue. But I do feel good about where we're at the moment. We are in the middle of a commissioner search, which our president is leading for the next president, for the next commissioner of our conference, which will be in place for this summer. And I think that's a crucial hire, and I think that's it'll be unique to see where we go from that respect as a conference. But we feel really good about where we're at. The goal is to continue to succeed in the conference, and we'd love to just go and win a bunch here in terms of what we're doing in football and basketball and all of our other sports for the foreseeable future, and that's the plan for the immediate future right now. Just like I saw a question about, what does it do for lacrosse facilities? That was a question that came up. We do have a plan for lacrosse facilities. We've had a plan that we'd like to execute, and we may have got a little bit closer last week in a good way to doing some things that we want to do around lacrosse in terms of having support for that. We've already had a donor that's contributed to that vision in terms of what we want to do. So there is a vision for lacrosse facilities, which is exciting and interesting. Again, something I would say that's in the hopper that's not out there yet. But one of the things I emphasize with our head coaches is that just because you see plans with Timmons doesn't mean there's not plans for other aspects of the university. I would love to roll out a comprehensive facilities master plan and say, hey, we're going to tackle all these things. There may be a point during the campaign that we do that we are public with what that looks like. I think some of the reasons why we have not, number one, we've got to fund the most immediate project in front of us, which is the Timmons Arena project, number one. And number two is we still need to have certainty about where we're going. Some of the things that are out there from facilities master plan are going to be dictated by the decisions that we make when it comes to our sports profile, what we look like and where we're going. So nothing shaking, nothing moving. And quite honestly, these are summer conversations we need to have when we have more time and space to really think about those different things.
All right, next question. Can you share how much money was made for both Furman and the SoCon after the tournament run?
Yes. So this would be something I don't want to say disappointed in, but there's a positive and there's a negative. So I haven't seen the final tally or the final amount, but because of Furman's participation in the tournament and subsequent tournament win, you accrue units for every time that you advance as you go through the tournament. And effectively, you're talking about a $900 million to $1 billion operation that the NCAA men's basketball tournament has. And then each team that wins and wins units in that process accumulates units that come back to the university and the conference over a 6-year period of time. So it is quite substantial. When you have great success and you have sustained success that Bob talked about, it is a driver for you to continue to grow and build where you are as an athletic department. The Southern Conference, through Furman's effort, would probably make close to $4 million from what I've seen, which is an initial estimate. Doesn't mean it's the actual. So we'll just say it's roughly in that category, $4 million over a 6-year spread that comes back to the conference. The trouble, and I don't mean this in a bad way, is that the current bylaws of the conference divides that pot up by 12, which means that there's 10 conference shares that go out. The winner gets a double share, and then the conference gets a share as well. So that's a hard mathematical equation when you're trying to grow and build, and it's something I've been aware of even before we won. And it may it may require a change in policy to look at that in terms of where we are as a conference. The thought process with the conference is they share these shares equitably so all the teams have an opportunity to grow, which benefits you when you're not winning. But what happens is when you win, you have a lot of resources that come through that aren't necessarily at your disposal. So even though we've made a lot of money for the conference, and I've had a number of ADs thank us for that, Furman doesn't necessarily directly benefit substantially from that process.
Not as much as you would think.
Not as much as you'd think.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it won't change. Doesn't mean that policy won't be different in the future. And I'm not saying that I don't agree with the policy because we won. I would have said the same thing if we were on the other side of it. I do think that that policy should be reflective of those that are winning. And I think the teams that are looking to invest and grow, and that might be the capitalist in me that you're hearing coming out, that I think that the equity should be distributed accordingly. It's just a different thought process. I mean, Clemson's going through the same thing when it comes to their TV contract. They're saying, hey, we're winning and driving revenue, and we're driving exposure through the ACC, and why aren't we getting a bigger cut of what would be distributed as an even pie in that TV contract, which for them are real dollars, millions and millions of dollars. For us, it's a similar size and scale of what we believe in and what we're trying to get done, and we'll see if that changes. But we have certainly supported the university, the conference at a high level, and we'd certainly love to see the university get rewarded for that, and it's something we got to continue to address in the future.
What was your personal most memorable moment from this year's basketball season?
You know, this was a good question, and it made me really think about it. I've been really blessed, Dan, and I've been fortunate, you know, in my career, particularly on the basketball side. You know, we've had a great journey. You know, my family and I have been able to enjoy national championships and Final Fours and NCAA tournaments and Sweet 16s. We've had a great run and some memorable moments, and even some of those things even before I got into college basketball. And as a player, I've been fortunate to always be a part of winning programs throughout my career. But the one thing that was totally different for me this time around was taking the underdog, taking the one bid league, this mid-major experience, and to be able to see it through this lens at Furman, and quite honestly, to be able to see it with my family, you know, to see my children be so excited about this and to really understand, because they're finally at an age that they can actually comprehend it. When I was coaching, they were just babies, you know, they were just so young, and even when we were going through our national championship run, they were still so young, and my youngest was just born. But it was really special to see it through the eyes of Furman, you know, and the tears, you know, in the eyes of some of our longest, strongest supporters, and the energy and the enthusiasm, everything from the hotel send-offs to, you know, the feeling of glory and the agony of defeat. I mean, it's all of it was really special for me, taking it in this year from this perspective, from a Furman perspective. I thoroughly enjoyed it, loved it, can't wait to do it again. It's the same way I feel about whenever we end a sport. Like, you know, as soon as football ends, I'm like, I wish we could play, you know, next semester. As soon as softball ends, I wish we could get right back at it, you know, right away and play. But it was just a beautiful experience, and I'm grateful to have been a part of it here at Furman, and excited to do it again.
Any update on licensing apparel? There are people who want the Lizzie D jerseys.
Yeah, so the Lizzie D jersey was Elizabeth wore a jersey at Selection Sunday, and it's really exciting. Our team, Drew Ingraham and Aaron Mays, are doing a really good job of pushing this forward, and I sent them a text to check in and said, where are we at with apparel? And to hear it from the beginning, they've got a proposal with the Brandt Group to launch a group rights program with our student athletes, which will allow for the collective use of NIL. This will allow licenses and opportunity to name and number T-shirts or student athletes or concessionaires, and a chance to put student athletes on commemorative items. So this has been something we've been working on, our staff all year, and what they're working on is getting jerseys for sports and also having the students be involved in this process, something that other institutions have been doing as well, which is a way to acknowledge name, image, and likeness, and to benefit the students. Like if you're Jalen Slauson, you're Mike Boppel right now, and your jersey's out there. You know, if you're Ryan Miller with football, you know, if you're Riley Ludlam with softball, or, you know, Anna Morgan with golf, like if you have the ability to get some merchandising out there with your name on it, is really what we're working towards. So the short answer is yes, we are making progress. The contractual nature of these things and the process for which it gets rolled out will get rolled out by our staff. Hopefully this summer will be much more accessible in that way. But yeah, we love to have more jerseys, more merchandise. And again, a marker of success is when you see Furman Athletics and the brand and the retail out available in the stores and accessible to folks, and we've seen an increase there. But yes, this is certainly an area that we want to continue to see increases, both in storefronts and online shopping. But yeah, it's coming.
What would be the process of getting jersey numbers retired from Mike Bothwell and Jalen Slauson? And I'll throw Matt Rafferty in there as well.
I'd say it's a done deal.
All right, moving right along.
I mean, no, it's just a no-brainer, and you know, it's funny that you asked the question, what is the process? Because I actually was asking around before all this run, hey, what is the process to retiring jerseys? Because since I've been here, we have not retired jerseys. So I went to people like John Block and others and said, hey, what is the process here at Furman? Because it's really not a defined process. But I would say with confidence that you should expect to see Mike Bothwell and Jalen Slauson's jerseys retired, and I'd be an advocate for Matt Raftery as well. And some of this will probably have to formalize some of this. Again, that's a conversation similar to a Hall of Fame where you should probably have a set process and policy for how you go about doing that. But I would be an advocate for supporting that, and I would expect that you would see that acknowledgement sometime soon. But I don't think it's something that we would formally do until the next basketball season. It's typically how you do something.
Right.
And try to find an opportunity to honor those that you're doing it. It's not just something you announce. It's something that you acknowledge and do as a part of the process. But, yeah, Mike and Slaw are definitely worthy and very deserving.
I'll kind of paraphrase the next question. We know that even before the NCAA tournament run that Bob's success have had other suitors coming after him. And you have and then the athletic department have responded in kind. This year, obviously, the ante was upped significantly. Yeah. So the question basically is, what did that look like from your standpoint? What was the process of retaining Bob? Because he mentioned in the TV interview that he turned down a couple of opportunities.
Yeah.
So what was that process like from your perspective?
Yeah, it's certainly a detailed and thorough process. The best way I could tell you is that each and every year that I've been here, Bob's had teams that have come after him that have wanted him to be a part of their institutions and all kinds of different levels, in terms of what the interest is. And there's many things that he's turned down and stayed away from. I will tell you from my perspective, Bob has been consistent with us that he wants to be here at Furman. He's said it the whole time. And part of our conversation, I guess the word transparency would be me saying, Bob, what do you really want to do, and where do you want to be, and how do you want to go through this process? And he was very transparent with us in that process, and in terms of what we wanted to do. I have the benefit of knowing a lot of things that go on around the business, some of which people know, and some of which people don't know, just through connections and through relationships, and also different processes that take place. So there's always more than you might know, and sometimes it's less than you might think. It just depends on how you look at it. But we went through a very transparent process of agreeing that, number one, Bob wanted to be here, Bob wants to invest here, and to figure out a mutual way to go about that process to keep him here. And I thought it was a very, very fair and very fluid process in terms of what we did with Bob and his agents and the people around him, with great support from both the university and donors, which went great. So we're just so excited to have him back. I do think we all have to acknowledge that with a coach of Bob's talent and a coach of Bob's success, there are jobs at a different level that are just astronomically different than what Furman can offer. And I was saying this in our head coaches meeting. Like, if you look at what the SEC is bringing in right now with their television contract, they're bringing in $100 million per team. So there's apples and oranges sometimes, and I think everyone just needs to know that relative to where we are. And we've got a very competitive deal for Bob that's awesome to have him. But at the same time, we also have to be realistic that we've got a great talent that really wants to be here, that's invested here, and enjoy him while we have him. He's very sincere about his desire to be here at Furman, continue to grow and continue to build. But it's going to be, an every year thing that with a coach of his talent in terms of where he is recruited to or attracted to and those things. I think he'll still continue to want to be here at Furman and compete here at Furman. But we've got a very transparent relationship in that space and a very good understanding of what he's looking for, what he wants to do. But his heart, his intentions, his energy, and his contract is here at Furman. So we're excited to have him back.
Some of the other questions that we had, I think we've already touched on, and in the interest of time and not wanting to lose the attention span of our viewers, we need to kind of get into wrap-up mode here. But the one that I will ask is about the possible shifting of spring break, so the students can actually be at the Southern Conference tournament as opposed to being on break that time. How is that conversation going, or is there a conversation going?
There's a conversation. We actually addressed it just last week. There's an interest on the part of certainly the athletic department and certain other areas of campus to see if you could align the spring break with the Greenville County spring break, and it would benefit the people with children in school, and we selfishly would love to benefit from that when it comes to the Southern Conference tournament. The reality of this is an academic decision that will be driven by the faculty and the administration, and they really have to look at it according to them, that they got to look at the start of the semester, when it starts, and they got to look at the end of the semester, and they got to find a spring break that allows the students to actually get a break in the middle of the semester. So even though it may seem like an easier thing to do than not, it's an academic discussion, and it sits with them. The proposal's out there. It's something we certainly would support and love to do. But we're going to keep trying to build the Southern Conference tournament experience regardless, whether the spring break is happening then or not. We're going to keep pushing on our end to do the things we need to do to support that. And it will be an academic decision relative to what happens with the spring break is where this will all lie.
Well, the one thing we found out this year is that whatever obstacles there may or may not be, Furman fans are going to turn out. And we have seen at the Southern Conference tournament and then down in Orlando the biggest outpouring of support for Furman basketball I've seen in my 12 years here.
Yeah, and I mean, same thing in football. Like we've seen, I don't want to lose sight of all the other things that are taking place, but there's so many. Bob said it really well. It's the collective work to trying to get this all right. When we had a football season this past year where you're close to leading the league in attendance, and you had a hurricane game where nobody showed up because we didn't have the ability to do anything. We're pushing all the right buttons, and we got great support from our community. Little things like our athletic department showing up at a cross country meet. All the coaches and student athletes being out there for their only home meet. There's little things that we do when you do things the right way. We saw that with football in San Antonio. The great support that we had here. We had more visiting team fans than they had home team fans. And the growth and the continual work here that we see. We're going to continue to build this community. Winning and inclusivity are very fun and exciting. When you feel like you're a part of something special, something that's bigger than you, then you want to join and be a part of that process. And having a winning team and a winning culture really goes a long way. That's what Bob was talking about when we talk about orientation. Like we want to share this with our Furman students when they get on this campus. We want to share this with our Furman community. We want to continue to grow and pull people in at a time where there's great challenges in our world, when there's different areas of division and different areas of conversation and disagreement, to be able to come together and agree as a Furman community on Furman and getting behind our athletics team and getting behind the Diamond F is just a valuable thing. So we want to continue to push that, continue to do things we're doing, continue to try to accomplish new things. And we see it. We see record-breaking attendance. We see we're proud to be a part of record-breaking growth with the women's regional and hosting that in Greenville. We see what happened in Greenville while we were down in Orlando. We felt what it was like in Orlando, that great experience, and we can see how everyone wants to be a part of it. So we're excited, and I appreciate that, Dan, because we don't ever look at anything as an obstacle that we can't overcome. We look at it as what's the conversation, what's the challenge, and how do we create an opportunity with it. But things are good. Things are in a great spot, and I'm grateful for your leadership and everything you do, because you've been a big part of this, and this opportunity for our fans to engage this conversation has been awesome.
Well, it's been a fun stretch. There's no question about it. And I joked with Bob, now all you have to do is go do it again. But that's kind of the thing for all of us. You just look for what's next and do your best to take what you've learned from the previous experiences and build on them and try to become better.
Exactly. Just like shout out to the Greenville Drive, because today's opening day. Do you got the game?
Yep.
Oh, good. I'll be tuning in to listen to you.
Yeah, looking forward to that, too.
It's awesome.
Yep.
Now, things are really good, Dan, and thank you to everyone. But, again, you always give me the chance to push things forward. Please come out and join us this weekend for the campaign launch weekend. We'd love to have anyone that is able to. Walk-ups are welcome, and you can register online. And please participate with DINS Day and support our DINS and everything that we're doing. And graduation is just around the corner, so the next time we get together in May, we'll wrap up the year and talk about what was done, but it's been a great year, and we're grateful for everyone that's been supporting this vision and this mission. So thank you.
It's hard to believe that we're coming to the end.
Unbelievable.
It really is. It flies by. Jason, thank you as always. We hope you enjoyed what turned out to be an extended version of our Ask the AD and guest Bob Richey on Inside Furman Athletics. We'll be back with another edition for you next week. Until then, for Jason and all of us at Furman, I'm Dan Scott. As always, saying God bless you and so long, everybody.